Welcome to the second season of the Deployment Dojo. This is episode 3 of a live show where we introduce and discuss software installation topics to make you a better setup ninja. I'm your host, Rob Menching, and joining me once again is my very good friend, back from vacation, and first student of the dojo, David Edson. David, how you doing, my man?
Yeah, pretty good. How are you?
Did you have a nice break?
Yes, it was good.
All right, I was a little worried. I thought you caught a little bit of an internet cold. We've been having a little of a connection between the two of us, but hopefully you sound clean and clear through the whole thing.
Uh-oh, just a slightly robotic. It's nothing.
A little robotic, that's right. Well, welcome, chat. It's great to have you guys here. Bert, Andy, Eugene, and 223 Kimmy. I mean, just Kimmy. You guys all saying hi. I love it. It's great to have you here. We're picking up where I thought we would do 2 episodes or 2 parts last week where we did targets. David, you did your homework, right? You got through the whole targets thing and studied all that and everything?
At least mostly. Yes.
Oh, mostly. All right. Well, we're going to build on that. And I thought we were going to break into a second part that was all about imports, but we didn't have time because honestly, that episode was a double-sized episode. It went almost an hour, but it was a whole lot of fun, and we dug into all the hopefully nooks and crannies of just the basics even of targets. So we're going to pick up where we left off. Well, we're going to start from scratch because that's what we're doing still, but then we're going to build a little bit more of a complex system. And I think we're probably going to have to introduce Git next episode. Git next episode, David? You know, bring GitHub back and start checking in all our changes?
Okay, yep.
All right. So I think with that, let's go write some code. Ready?
All right, ready.
Okay. Episode 3, clean sheet. There's no files here, as you can see inside my editor. So let's go ahead and create our new file. We've been calling it dojo.proj. Dojo.proj is a fine name for our targets files, and we're going to our project files, not our target files, and we're going to call it project. Woohoo! Projects can have properties in them. We create our properties by putting them inside. This is property A. All right, I got to warm up my fingers here. Prop A. Okay. Inside a property group. And in between those two things, that's how we get our properties created. And then we can create items, an item group. This will be item B. And the way we create those, we can bring them in as files, things like that. Or we could say does not exist.txt on the machine. I don't have a file called does not exist on this machine right here in this directory. That double angle bracket is crazy. There we go. We now have a property. We have an item. The last thing, we have a target name, and we will call this target 1. Steph was making fun of me for switching between numbers and letters. So if you didn't see the last replay or the VOD of last thing, she got all kinds of crazy about me getting stuck on names. Anyway, let's create a target where we can actually do something. We will have a message in it. I will do importance equals high so that it will be nice and bright and white on our screen. And I will then have the text be we'll just do prop A, colon, parentheses, prop A, close message. There we go. Save our file, do MSBuild right here in this directory. Because our file ends in a .proj file, MSBuild will find it no problem. We run it. We get a whole bunch of output of, hey, here's our version of MSBuild. This is our project that we're running. We ran our target 1. It printed out a message. This is property A. We are done building, and it took us a very little bit of time. There we go. We're all caught up on all the stuff we did in the last 2 episodes, right?
Right.
All right. With all the dependencies and things like that. So let's keep going. Martin made it. Hey, welcome, Martin. All right, this is great. We've got a nice full chat today, kind of like last time. David, we're building a little bit of a following here. This is good. I like it. Okay.
Nice.
Now, let's go ahead and make this project do a little bit more, just because it's a good idea. Do you remember item B? And remember, the syntax for items is the @ sign. Very important. We've belabored that enough. I'm not going to talk about it some more. And then we have 2 targets in here. Do you remember, David, which one is going to run if I just say run it or both or whatnot?
The first one, right?
Yep, you are correct. Target 1 runs first. And we can specify on the command line, let's run target 2 because I want to see the value of item B. It comes out and it tells me item B is that a value that I put in it does not exist.text. There we go. Fast forward. We now have a somewhat interesting, I don't know, arguably interesting targets file. So the last thing we'll do, we will say, hey, since target A or target 1 runs by default first, because it is first, we run MSBuild. With that depends on targets. Now it will run both of them. It'll run target 2 and then target 1 in the order that we specified. Target 2, whoop, I want to move you. Target 2 spits out its message. Target 1 runs. There we go. Here we go. We now have a targets file that has a whole bunch of stuff in it, and we're starting to get bigger and bigger files. You agree?
Agreed.
All right. So at some point, this file could get big. Very big. We could end up with a lot of targets. If you think about something like the Wix toolset that has almost, I think 500,000, like 400 to 500,000 lines of code, our project files get really big and they do lots of things, including, not just building, signing, copying files around, packing them all up into different formats, building MSIs, running all kinds of tests. They do a lot. So this is nice and simple that we can have one project file as an test. It's gotten us through 2 episodes, but let's break it down into something a little bit more structured so that we can make this usable over time. I'm going to turn this down a little bit. All right. So the way we do that is we create more project files. I hope that's not a surprise. Everything inside MSBuild is a project file. So now we could create our, let's call it, do I want to choose? So we create another project file and we'll call it our messages. And when you, and the what are the word I'm looking for? The typical way of doing things, the standard, when you're going to create a project file with just target files in it, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to take our targets and move them to a separate file. You typically call it a targets file. All right. So it is still, though, just a project. This is just not a standard, a common way of doing things. I've lost the word, David. A convention.
Convention.
It's a convention. The convention is to call it a targets files. All right. So let's take our targets here that are doing all the work and pull them out and put them into another project file that we're going to call targets because it holds targets files. Thank you, Martin. A little bit second behind, but perfect. Thank you. This target now, this project file is a targets file. We often refer to them as targets files. Has targets. That does not mean they have to only have targets in them. All of this is just conventions. It's still just MSBuild project file. It still could be called anything.proj, and MSBuild would pick it up by default. And in fact, we don't want to call this one .proj because this isn't the one where the messages.targets. We're not going to call that one .proj or anything that ends in project because we don't want it to run by default.
Right.
All right. Okay. Let me finish the thought, and then we're going to go around and mess things up and hopefully help it stick together. So, great. I have this project. I have this targets file. If I run my build again, what do we expect to see? Do a clear screen MSBuild. Any guesses what we're going to see?
You haven't put that targets file in the other one yet, have you?
Right.
So nothing?
Yeah. There is no target in the project. It's like, hey, you ran the default project, which is dojo.proj. There's nothing in it. And this is very helpful MSBuild saying, hey, I didn't do anything. So the way that you include this targets file is not include. That would have been made sense. You import it. Okay. So now you can say, hey, include that targets file, that project file into this one. Okay.
Okay.
Now when we run it, we get what we had before. Target 1 ran, target 2 ran first because target 1 depends on it, and our project file. So essentially what MSBuild did was load this project file up, found this import statement, went into this project file, loaded it up, and then executed the whole thing together. Right?
Yep, makes sense. So imports it does first, I'm assuming, when you build a project like that.
Yes, thank you, David, because you're heading right down the right path. What is the order of operations? The order of operations matters again. As we've seen, properties on the outside are done first, items on the outside are done second, and then targets are started to be executed. So let's start messing with the order of things. What did I just do? I took the dependency off of these two guys. All right, targets 1 and targets 2. So now they're just floating here, independent targets. I have imported them. What do we expect to be the output in this case? Any guess?
Wait, what'd you change? I was looking.
I removed the depends on target. So now target 1 and target 2 are defined by themselves. Hey, chat, by the way, go ahead and jump in at any time and start saying, hey, I think the answer is X. I'm leaving these out here. I know you guys are a little bit behind, but you'll be able to get brownie points at the end if you get these right.
Is it just back to target 1 that you don't have the depends on?
You're exactly right. We're back to target 1. All right. Okay. So because in the import order, target 1 was the first one as we went through the imports. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to copy messages.text. I'm going to call it messages1, and I'm going to call this messages2. Inside messages1, I'm going to include only target 1. Inside messages 2, I'm going to include only target 2. I'm breaking these up so we can start moving around our imports and maybe having more than one import.
Okay.
All right. So what are we going to see here if I run this?
Well, you haven't imported the 2 yet, have you? And
I have it, and I also didn't import 1. I still have the messages.txt in my import. So you get actually a pretty nice error message saying, hey, the imported project from this directory was not found. Confirm that it's there and that you actually meant to pull that in. All right, so I didn't bring in messages1. So now I'm going to point to messages1.txt. And when I run this, we get target 1 back. All right. And as you would logically expect, if I bring in messages2, it's going to bring in only this target. And we run it, we're going to get target 2.
yep.
All right. So we're switching between, no big deal. You're like, all right, great. Now I want both like I had to start with. So let's go ahead and give ourselves both. I'll bring in messages1 and messages2.targets. If I run this, what am I going to get?
Should be back to the beginning how we had it.
That's right. We're back to target 1.
Yep.
All right. Okay. And if we switch them and we run it again, now we get target 2 because it was the one that was imported first. So you have to kind of follow your way through. All right, I started dojo.proj. I'm going to run my way through. Okay, first it brings in message 2. That's a target. Cool, got it. And then, all right, go back. Okay, now I import message 1. Come back here. Okay, that's target 1. And there it is.
And then you can put the depends on there and it goes back to how you had it originally.
So let's do exactly that. Depends on targets equals target 2. All right. So we're importing messages 2. We're importing messages 1. Targets 2 is first. Targets 1 will depend on targets 2. In this configuration, what are we going to get?
Oh, well, you have it in a different order. So,
Good. Trick question. We're still going to get target 2 because it's first. Target 2 doesn't depend on anything, so it just runs. Now we'll switch to order. Target 1 will run through here first,
yep.
And target 2 then will be second. So now let's clear the screen, build again, and we're back to target 2. Target 1 is the one we start with, but because it depends on target 2, it runs it, and then we get both printed. Okay,
got it.
Everybody at this point is like, this all totally makes sense. This is all very simple. No big deal. I'm belaboring this point again because it's important that we will build on this. And again, the order of targets matters. So I want to now show you, what if we called this a proj file? We'll call both of these a proj file. This is totally fine. They are project files, right?
Okay.
Yeah, Martin has brought up it works like an include, and it works exactly like an include, but it has a couple more features that we'll talk about in a minute. Okay, so now I have dojo.proj pulling in messages1.proj and then messages2.proj. What do we think happens here?
I'm not sure. Hopefully the same as above.
Hopefully the same as above. Yeah, it turns out we're going to get an error because MSBuild has found that there are multiple projects files here. Contains more than one project or solution. We're not talking about solutions yet, but it contains more than one project file in this directory. Because MSBuild found multiple files that ended in proj extension, it's like, well, I could run any of those by default. So we have to pick one. So let's pick dojo.proj. So we'll explicitly tell it, build this one. There's a bunch of them in this folder. Build this one.
Okay.
And when we build that one, look, everything works. It does its imports, pulls those pieces in, and everything happens. Now, what happens if we do this instead?
What, the messages? Yeah.
What if we run messages1.proj?
I'm not sure.
Should work. It's just a project file.
And so just that message in that one.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh,
because it depends on. Yeah.
It fails because it has depends on targets and it couldn't find it.
You could do the 2, right? Because 2 doesn't have a depend.
Yes, that's a good point. Now we can run 2, and 2 runs, and notice it prints out target 2, and item B is blank.
Nothing.
It's blank because all MSBuild loaded up was targets or messages2.proj and ran it. There is no item B in here, so nothing happens.
Yep.
Okay, no problem. Like, yep, that totally makes sense, hopefully. Now, let's go back and clean this up because these are targets files. That's the convention. Thank you for the correct word. Targets and targets. Okay, we're gonna go all the way back to the beginning. Well, not the beginning. And we will just run our MSBuild command. There's only one .proj now, dojo.proj. It imports both of these targets and we will now run it. And everything's back to normal. And we have the targets files. No surprises, right? Put everything back.
Right.
I also want to point out, we can do messages2.targets. It's still a project file. Doesn't matter. It's just MSBuild will find files that end in proj, extensions that end in proj for you automatically, but you could pass it anything. We could give this extension anything. Here, we'll call it, messages to foo. That doesn't make any sense. Nobody would ever do that, but you can, and it will run just that target by itself. Of course, it doesn't import the item B, so it has no definition of that, and we're done.
Yep.
Right? All right, cool. So that's importing the basics of bringing in targets. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Now, I want to do something one more step, a little more complicated. We can, in messages2, we can define properties and items because they're just project files. Okay? So
Okay.
I'm going to take these 2 properties. I'm going to bring them into messages2. Well, I guess I'm going to bring the item into messages2. I'm going to bring the property into messages1. That makes sense, right? Okay.
Yep.
Messages1, property A. Okay. So this is
All
going
right.
to, hey, I'm going to set property A to messages1, property A. Cool?
Yep. Cool.
All right. And we're going to then come to here, and this is going to be messages2 dot. We're going to put itself in there. All right. We're going to
Okay.
say, hey, cool.
Yep. Cool.
All right. Then we're going to run dojo.proj. What do we think is going to happen?
I think it's going to work.
Yes, but what is going to work? We're going to get this property set in here. Messages1, messages2.
Yep. 2 is going to go first.
Messages2 will be a depends on target. So
Yep.
what we'll run, and it will print out item B, but what will it print out?
Well, I mean, itself, the messages 2 targets, right?
But we ran inside Dojo, and it already had an item B in it.
Oh.
There's an item B
That's a
in
good question. I run it and see. I guess the does not exist.
Okay. And then messages1 will run target 2 for us. And then it will print out property A. So what do we think it's going to print there again? Again, here's prop A. It says message1 prop A. And Dojo also has a prop A. This is property A.
Maybe I don't know, but maybe the prop A from there, the Dojo takes
Okay.
precedence. I'm not sure.
All right.
So this is property A and then does not exist.
Right. So let's call this Dojo property A.
Okay.
Okay. And then we have messages 1, property A, and we have message 2 targets that has item B that puts itself in there, and Dojo. How about we, to make them symmetrical, put Dojo proj in item B.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Moment of truth.
Yep.
Run our MSBuild. It'll start our Dojo proj, load our targets, load another targets file, and then spit out a whole bunch of data. Go ahead, chat. You can keep typing if you have guesses in here what you think you're going to get for property A and item B. I'm going to run it so you have a little bit of time. I know there's a delay between when I'm talking and what you're typing. So here we go. Clear screen, MSBuild, run it. What do we get? Item B prints out Dojo proj and messages2.proj together with a semicolon.
Okay.
And then prop A spat out messages1, property A. So I think you were 0 for 2 there, David.
Yeah. I didn't guess that very well.
All right. But hopefully if we go back to our properties, we remember properties are done first.
Yep.
Everywhere. And if you have the same property, the second one overwrites the first one. So whoever's last wins. You can kind of think of them as very simple assignment variables, right? So it's just like prop A was first assigned Dojo property. And then as we went along, it got assigned something else and then something else. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
And then we have items. Now remember, items are like collections. They collect everything together. So whatever is included in them gets included or it gets put together in a collection in order. So first we came along, item B got dojo.proj, and then inside messages 2, it added messages 2.targets.
Mm-hmm.
So we got them collected together. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Hopefully that's not surprising. Now I'm going to do something a little bit strange. I'm going to say, let's create a property group inside target 2. Man, my typing today. Whew. Prop A. And the IntelliSense is not helping me at all. It is gone. It's actually confusing me looking at it. Grupo. All right, group. Man. Okay. So I have now created a property inside target 2. Okay.
Okay.
So now we got to start thinking, all right, so we have Dojo. It's going to load up, set this property to the Dojo property A. And then we're going to set our item B. We're going to bring in messages1.targets. So property A will be set to messages1.prize. Then we'll have this target. And then we'll go to message2.targets. And it will define the item. And then all our targets will run. So what are we expecting the value to be in the end? What do we think the value of property A will be?
The target 2 property A.
The target 2 property A. And that's exactly right. Because it ran last. It did the last assignment to the property. Because first we loaded up all of our imports in order. Property A got set to Dojo property A. Then through the loading of messages 1, it got set to messages 1 property A, overwrote the value. And then when messages 2, it didn't change the value when it got loaded. But then the target started running. Target 2 was run first. It changed the value of property A. And then finally we ran target 1 and it printed out the value.
I can see how this can get confusing after it gets pretty large.
When it gets large, you can see how chasing all these variables down can get kind of exciting, right? All right, and I'm going to leave it exciting and hard, hopefully forcing you to think about it. We'll get into debugging tools in a little while, all right? Not today, but in the future, okay? All right. Right now, our best debugging tool still, and the one I want you to get most comfortable with, is message. Printing out a message is the best way to go about doing it. And in fact, printing out a message as you go along through targets is great. The one problem with message is you can't print out a message after things are just loaded, right? So if we want to know what was, property and item B before we started running targets, you can't use message. You have to find a target to run.
Ah, okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
But it turns out there's a way we could do that. All right, ready to go do the next thing?
All right, let's go.
Okay, so we have properties, targets, messages. I'm going to remove this second setting of property, prop A. All right, so now we're back to Dojo's property is set here. Messages 1 is set here. And no, you know what? I take it back. I'm going to keep it. No, I don't want to rename. All right, fine, whatever. And then we'll have target 2. Okay, so there is a neat trick you can do with projects in them that is we could actually do when we had the single project. We didn't talk about it. We talked about the default targets. And actually, we probably should talk about default targets inside here too. Let's talk about default targets before I talk about the next thing.
All right.
And you know what? This is the part where I'm not sure what happens. All right. So we're going to say, if you remember, default targets were when you run a project, this is the project to run by default as opposed to the first one you encounter. How about we let you say which one to run first? Okay. So what I've done is I've added default targets inside both messages 1 for target 1 and for message 2, I set default targets here. And then we have the Dojo project, which I'm not going to set it at all. I don't know what the answer is going to be. I don't know who the default target is going to be. I think it will be the first one. Okay. So we're going to import messages 1. I think we're going to hit this and say it's going to be default targets 1 and then message 2, but I could be wrong. All right. So let's run it and see what happens. And it was target 1. What's more interesting is if you do default targets here in our project file, we now know that we have target 1 and target 2 out there. We can, in our Dojo project, say, hey, let's set this to the default projects. So now we could explicitly set, let's say, just target 2 to be the default project.
All right.
So when we run this, now only target 2 is run. All right. So it's inside a targets file. You can set the default targets here. We can do this. I'm going to add a target called target 2A. And I'm going to add a target here. Target name equals target 1A. And I want that message. I want both these lines actually. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run these and I'm going to take off the default targets now. Just for a minute. Take up all the default targets. So now we're back to no default targets and we're going to run our messages. Project messages 1 has 2 targets in it, target 1A and target 1. Messages has target 2A and target 2. So when we import this, what targets do we think are going to run?
That first one, right? The new A,
the target 1A. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh no, that's not the one I want. All right. I want it to run target 1, which will depend on target 1A and that. So now we could say default targets equals target 1. All right, so default targets, if we do this, I haven't verified this myself. We're all doing this live together. Now I've said, hey, Dojo has no default targets, so it's going to load them in order. Messages 1 has a target here, target 1A, which would be the default, except that we've explicitly said which one we want. And we're going to do then the same thing for this guy. Default targets equals target 2.
Yep.
Because remember, default targets allows us to organize our project file however we want, put our targets in whatever way is logical, and then say which one is really the one that is the one that you're supposed to launch. The ones that are meant to be started at the beginning, right?
Right. Yep. So we're back to the normal stuff.
Right. So now we're back to target 1 ran, it ran target 1A, it ran target 2, and everything is back to where it goes. So the default targets allows you to, within your targets file, encapsulate what you want to define the default target is. Or you can bring it up to the top. All right. Now I'm going to do something. I don't know if we did this. Bring target 1B here real quick. This is for my own education. I think we can also have it target 1B. There we go. We can give it 2 default targets. Okay.
Really? Okay.
So Dojo has no default targets on it. Message 1 gets loaded first. It has 2 default targets on it. Message 2 only has 1 default target on it. if we run this, clear screen, build again, you're going to see we're going to get target 1 ran its 2 dependencies, and then target 1B also ran as its default targets. Okay?
All right.
So target 1 was able to say, hey, these are my default targets. I want you to run them. Now, if we switch the order of these again, we put messages 2 before messages 1. Message 2 says my default targets is target 2. When we run this now, we only get target 2. Okay? So you see how within my project file I was able to organize, encapsulate what this targets file wants to be its default targets. So target 2 and target 2A just got skipped completely. All right?
Yeah.
Makes sense? This is good. Yes. It's like, so what you're getting is the ability to encapsulate logic inside your targets files. Because as these things get more complicated, you want someone to just consume a targets file. You can set these appropriately, and then they don't have to do a whole lot of work to make it happen.
Yep.
Okay. So now let's say out of all of this, I have my Dojo project, and I bring these 2 in, but I want to run target 2A. So I can, by default, so if I don't specify anything, I can say default targets equals target 2A. So the Dojo project says, I want you to go out there and find target 2A and run it by default if the user doesn't specify a targets. And target 2A just runs by itself here. All right?
All right.
So if we run that by default, boom.
Yep.
Target 2A is run. So by default, my project will run target 2A. And I can override that by saying run target 1 and target 2. No, target 1B.
Yeah, whatever.
And this is PowerShell, so I have to escape it. And I almost did that because semicolon is a multiple command operator. There, see? Target 1 ran with its 2 dependencies, and target 1B ran. Okay?
Okay.
So what you're seeing here are all different ways of encapsulating your code to make it easily reusable. All right? So I want to do the next thing, which I was hinting at in Kata 0 before we started this. Sometimes you'll end up with a project that you're like, I need to do something. I need to set a property. I need to set an item in target order, not during initial load order, right? So you're like, I need to do something when my project is loaded, and knowing that the parent project can ignore my default targets, how do I make sure I can get a target running no matter what? Well, it turns out we are given a initial targets. I gotta be able to spell it though. And you can specify again a list of targets that will run and always run when this project file is imported into your project. All right. So we'll call this init1. I'm going to put it all the way down here at the bottom. Actually, I'm going to copy this guy.
So if you run that project, it forces that target to run.
If you include this target, if you include this project file, the targets file, it will always run this here.
Okay.
So we will now be able to make sure that no matter what in all of these things, we will get init number 1. All right, so we're going to go back. I don't even know what the default. All right, so we have no default on the project, which means my message 1 is first, which means we're going to get the default targets. I'm just going to make it target 1. Okay, so our default target through all this is target 1.
Yep.
It will depend on targets 1A and target 2. Go run those. Not target 1B, not target 2A, none of those. And also we have this init. All right, so because I set initial targets, let's see when init runs. Clear screen, MSBuild, run everything by default. Look at that. Init1 ran before all of my other targets. Okay.
Which could be helpful, I'm assuming. Like,
yeah, if you need it, it's vital. Sometimes you absolutely need you've written some code inside you've organized the world such that you need to be able to initialize something here, right?
Right.
So init2. Okay, so I have now added init2 to messages2.targets. I'm going to clear screen MSBuild. We're going to build this again. Notice that init 1, get it? Init 2 happened, and then target 1, target 2. So then target 1 ran. All right, so you can see how this could be a nice encapsulation mechanism. And the nice thing is it will continue to work even if you say run target 2A, right? Target 2A is all by itself, doesn't run anything else.
Yep.
How many targets are going to run from this?
Well, the 2 itself and then init, hopefully.
3. Init 1, init
Oh,
2,
yeah, okay.
and target 2.
I forgot about the other init.
Okay.
Yep.
And if we switch the order of messages 2 and messages 1, so now message 2 is imported before messages 1, we clear screen MSBuild, and we run again target 2A. Init 2 happens, init 1 happens, and then target 2A is run. So the order that these are imported is the order that they will be, that their initialization targets will happen.
Okay.
Okay, so this is why I was saying, Martin, it's like an include file, but these importing of projects has more power because they can run targets as part of their import process. All right, so also note that you can initialize properties. Your properties on the global scope are initialized before your initial targets are run. Again, all of your global properties are loaded, all of your global items are loaded, and then your initialization is printed. So if we do init 2 and we say, and we print out item B here, right? Init 2 item B, then item B is set here in the dojo for dojo.proj, and is also set here in our messages.targets at the top globally. There is no setting of it anywhere in messages1.targets. So if I run this again, I will, in my init, I will get both of those set, messages2.targets and the dojo.proj. Make sense?
Yes.
All those globals happen first. If I take this message, if I take the item group out of the global space and I initialize it only in target 2, and then I tell this to run MSBuild run target 2, that A is not there. I want it to not show. Okay, sorry. That A is not there. We're going to run target 2. There, that'll get rid of it. We're going to run target 2. This item B will have what in it when it runs on init?
The messages 2.targets, but not the dojo, right?
No, other way around.
Oh, dojo, not the messages 2, yeah.
Init will have only dojo because it was set globally, and then target 2 will have dojo.proj and messages.targets. Yep. Okay. So these initial targets, default targets are a way of organizing your targets files for when they get imported. Initial targets are a way to make sure that when your project is included, these targets will always run first. And then the project out here, in the end, gets to control the rest of the world. Cool?
Cool. Makes sense.
Now, I'm going to do something. Normally, it's convention to put targets at the end. You can also put them at the top. Okay? What does this change? Well, because targets run last, none of the targets change anything by importing them first. All right? But what does change are any properties and items that are at the global scope. Let's put him back at the global scope. Right? Those will be evaluated in order. So now by moving our imports of our targets to the top, we have brought our definition of, well, what's in messages 1? Prop A now is first. And then we go back to Dojo. Then we load messages 2. So message 2 defines item B with messages.targets in it. And then Dojo changes to prop A, and then it adds item B to it. Okay?
Okay.
So the order of things is going to be different because these are at the top now. Let me see. Which target do I want to run out of all of these? What does target 2 do now? Okay, great. I want to run target 1. Perfect. Yes, I want to run the default targets. Great. So I'm going to run default targets, which is going to run target 1 for us. All right. Now, what did we get? Notice our item B now has mesh2.targets and dojo.proj, and the sorry, these are global, so that's why the init and the message have it. But I want you to notice that messages2.targets is now in front of dojo.proj in our list because the imports were moved to the top. So the item started with messages2 in it, and then dojo was added inside the project. Is this making sense?
Yes.
All right. But then the targets all ran exactly the same. So just like programming, global variables are tricky. They can get you into lots of problems. So putting global variables inside your targets files creates challenges. And you have to be very careful about it because usually your targets go last. That's the convention. And then you can then overwrite any properties that anybody had through your targets files. Okay.
Right.
But if you put it first, then your properties can get overwritten by the project because the targets will run. It will be loaded in order, properties, items, and then the targets run. So depending on which way you import these, it matters. Cool?
Cool.
Where am I at? Lost track. Okay. Because of that, I want to get into one more quick convention. It is common to create what are called props files. And usually they are paired, not usually, they are often paired with a targets file. And normally the props files are decided to be imported at the top. Did I spell it wrong? Messages one dot props. Oh, this is not a project file yet. Okay. And usually you put your properties up here. And I want to explain why once I get this kind of put my project in order. Okay. And let's go ahead and create a message2.props. And we call it props even though it may have items in it. That's just, so you have targets and props. I don't know why they chose props. I guess props is easier to see than items, or items sounded important. I don't know. All right. So what have I done? I've extracted out my properties and my items into a props file that matches the name. So I have message1.props that now has my prop A. See, mesh1 prop A. And then I have my message2 shows here's my message2 item being added item B. Now my targets no longer have global state being added or set in them. Okay. And I go back to Dojo and I need to save some files here. That's why it's upset at me. Yeah, okay. So I've imported now my message1.props, my message2.props, and I have my message1 targets and my message2.targets. Okay, so the reason we do this is because the most common cases are if you have a message1.targets, you probably have some like default properties or items that you want to set. So, but you want then the project to override those defaults. So if you define your property first, then the project puts your properties at the top, then the project can define its own property that overwrites yours, and then your targets run. You're now in the correct order for natural order for the property to be able to be overwritten by the project file. Does that make sense? It's very subtle, but it's very important.
Yeah, I think so. It makes sense.
Right. The idea being, hey, I have messages1.targets, and it needs prop A, or it's going to print out nothing. Okay. So I'm going to give you message1.props that gives it a default value. And by putting it in a separate props file, it makes it very easy and the convention that you would put it at the top of your project, and then you can overwrite it if you want. And if you don't want to overwrite it, then you get to keep my default and everything works out fine. And then targets go at the end because that's just the convention. Also, by putting the targets at the end, you can then put content inside your targets where you're like, no, I'm always going to overwrite this property. I don't want the project file from messing with it because the target, if it is included at the bottom, then works out. So you give the opportunity here as a targets developer, as an MSBuild targets developer, you provide props files to provide your defaults that go at the top of people's projects. You give them the targets that they put at the bottom, and then they put whatever they need to in between those two parts. The body of the project is their stuff that they can then override your defaults and provide the values you need for your targets to run. Cool.
Okay. Yep.
All right. All of this today has been getting to that point. I'm going to give you one last thing because I always like giving one last thing here. We've been talking about, oh gosh, it's really tricky to think through all of the, there are now 5 project files participating in this MSBuild step here. And you can look at all these things and you're like, I can put them together because they're not that complicated. And we wrote every single one of them right here in the last, however many minutes, I lost track, 45 minutes of all of these individual parts. But maybe you just want to see them all in one go because that maybe would be helpful. So fortunately, MSBuild gives you this preprocessor statement called -pp, and then you can give it whatever you want. So you can give it like I'll get out.xml. It takes the whole projects, all the imports, sticks them together, and then gives you one single project that shows you then how they were all brought together. So it's like, all right, here's what I did. I started with dojo.proj. Here's here's the import of messages.props. Oh, look, and and dojo.proj. It also, I don't remember doing this before, but it now shows you it has lifted the initial targets and default targets from where they were up here to this project. So then it shows the import of messages.props. There it is in one line. And then here's another comment line of S2E3. That's now we're back to dojo.proj, and now we're into messages.props. All right, now we're back to dojo.proj at the end of the import. All right, and then we have our items, and then, here's messages1.targets. There's all of our targets brought in for us. And then here's our messages2.targets, and there's all our targets, and then we're back to dojo. So what this does is essentially flattens your imports into one list into one single project file. And this project file is equivalent to our original dojo.proj with all the imports, but it's all been squished into this one with comments left over to show you where the import happened, what files being included, and so on and so forth. All right. So this could be really helpful when you're trying to learn something. Like what targets are available or whatever. You can do this PP and then the preprocessor out, and then you could just search this file up and down. When I get lost, sometimes this is the easiest way. Take your project file. You can do this with your C-Start project files. You can do this with any MSBuild project file, and then you can just search inside one file instead of having to jump across a whole bunch of other ones.
Cool.
So it's a very handy trick if you're trying to figure out where is this thing being defined. Just generate this PP out and it'll flatten it all for you. And then you can kind of search your way up and down. It's not the easiest thing to read with all these, comments in between, but the comments are useful to tell you, hey, this is the thing that happened at this point in time, and then what came from there, and so on and so forth. All right.
Got it.
Questions, comments, things, David. What do you think?
I don't know if I have any questions at the moment. There's a lot there for me to take in.
Yep. Yeah. So what we're doing here is we're slowly graduating out of I'm just using MSBuild, and imports particular are I'm just using MSBuild for my types of systems. And now you can start thinking, I can start using MSBuild to build for other people's systems and give them targets that they could reuse and props files that they could reuse within their projects, or maybe your own projects, but ways of organizing your code so that you don't have everything in one single file. Because that just can get unwieldy.
Yeah, it seems like the conventions are very important, although they're not, like explicit, right? Like it's like you showed us about putting the targets on the bottom down there and the
Yep.
default. I mean, that's super important, even though you don't have to do it that way.
Yeah. And a lot of it, I think, came because MSBuild was built as a very flat system. It is very flat because all of your properties, even through all these imports, are all in a flat space. So everything's global, and so you have to deal with lots of collisions. I think the MSBuild could use with some sort of name spacing, but it never had that. It was never designed with name spacing. I don't know if they ever thought the project files would get this big or this many targets as what gets out there. And we haven't even done that much, and it's starting to get pretty big already.
Right.
But I think because of that, they kind of tripped across what turned into becoming good conventions and good ways to write project files. I learned this by reading the Microsoft project files and then creating the Wix project files and going, oh, I need to do this. I need to structure my props file, the wix.props, separate from the wix.targets so that people can override certain settings. And you just kind of learn. Then you see like, oh, that's why you break props out separate from targets. And then you get the order. But first you must know that properties are first, items are second, and targets are third. Took me forever to figure out all the ordering of imports and the magic that was happening with these global definitions until I figured that out, which is why I made such a big deal of that on the first episode, the second episode, and I'm doing it again here.
Yep. Right.
So we're now at the place where we can build more complex systems using imports. These are I think we've kind of, let me think here. I think we've exited the very, very fundamentals. These first episode was pure fundamentals, properties, items, targets. Second episode was look at all these things you can do with targets, just the fundamentals. And that was just fundamental targets. Now we've looked more at the projects and how you can import them and how they can interact with them and some conventions that are laid out with your projects. From here, I think we start building more advanced tips and tricks on top of MSBuild because that's how we can do some really powerful things with properties, with items, and with targets and how we structure our imports. We're now going to do some tips and tricks from there. That's where we're going to end up next.
Alrighty.
Cool?
Cool.
All right. Well, chat's all nice and quiet. I don't know if we put everybody to sleep, David. Once again, we're running closer to an hour than we are 30 minutes, which I guess just means that there's enough content in these. And I didn't want to split up imports into separate ones.
Yeah.
All right. Eugene's like, he's still awake. I got a happy face. One thing I didn't mention, but hopefully you would guess, you can have project files that import targets files or prop files or other project files that then import more project files, that then import more project files, that import more project files, and so on and so forth. So don't create cycles. Maybe we'll do that at the beginning just to see if you create an import that imports itself.
Yeah, right.
We're not going to do that
recursion.
today. Yes, we are. We're going back. Sorry. I have to do it. Now, as soon as I thought about it, I was like, okay, we have to do it. All right, what are we going to do? We're going to have import messages one dot props. We're going to put it right at the top. That imports messages one dot props. We're going to put a loop right at the top. And we're going to run this. Because I just have to see it. Not that. Clear screen MSBuild. Boom. And it says, warning, message props cannot be imported again. It was already imported this. This is likely a build authoring error. This subsequent import will be ignored.
Yep.
So if you try to import something twice, you will get a warning, and only the first one will stay. There you go. All right. Oh, we're done with sparring. We're done. I'm glad to see that everybody stayed awake through all of that. I'm hoping that this goes by quickly. You can then try to experiment with it. I think it's much more fun to try to break it, put something in, try it, change it around, try it, change it around, try it. Is much more interesting than explaining what each thing does. Just put it in, try it out, stick some messages in there, and see what the answer comes out. It's a much faster way of getting through to learn MSBuild in my experience. So we'll leave it here. I will have to sit down and think a little bit about our next projects. We're gonna have to get a little structured here to actually build something from week to week as we start building more complex targets that do a little bit more than just print out messages. I was here. David, was here. Rob was here. Those sorts of things. Right, David?
Yep.
Yep. All right. Cool. Well, if you don't have any other questions, we'll be back in a month, like always. The first Wednesday of, what is that? July. We're in July, so August.
I know. 6th of August. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So we'll be back in July, August. And those of you that aren't with us right here, right now, you are watching this on the last Wednesday of the month, or the fourth Wednesday of the month is really what I should say. The fourth Wednesday of the month, because I think there's 5 Wednesdays this month. We'll be back in the first Wednesday of August. And always, hey, if you want to reach out, you know how to reach me. Reach out to Fire Giant. We could go dig into your build process and your systems and how Wix can help you build your systems. Because remember, setup tends to fit very tightly with this MSBuild, with the build system. And it's kind of where the two worlds become real. That's why we're doing all this MSBuild work, because it dovetails straight into all the setup work. And if you need help, let us know. All right. That's all I got this week. Until a month from now, you guys take it easy. We'll see you later. Bye.
See ya.
I have to remember how to end the show. I pushed this button. Bye.